Hello, ski racing fans, and welcome to the American Downhiller podcast presented by skiracing.com. Episode number 4, titled The Saslong with Buxi. I'm Doug Lewis, and together with World Championship medalist AJ Kitt, Honeycomb winner Darren Rawls, and World Cup winner Marco Sullivan. This week, we are talking about the most fun downhill on the circuit with the craziest terrain for sure, Gardena's The Saslong. But we have a special guest. He's from Liechtenstein, had 268 World Cup starts, won the silver medal in GS at the 99 Worlds, and is a 6-time Olympian. That blows my mind. And he won Gardena downhill in 2005. Please welcome Marco Buechel. Marco, where are you and what did you do today?
Well, I am, unfortunately, I have to say I'm in Germany. I commentated the men's and the women's races, men's in Val d'Isère, women's in Sestriere. But the TV station ordered me to the main headquarters in Germany. It is pretty flat and there's not a bit of snow. So it is frustrating, but on the other hand, I can commentate the other guys smashing it down the mountain.
Let's talk about your career. It is incredible because I think you were coming up when I was skiing and you raced with all of us. So Marco, AJ, and D Money, talk about what it was like racing against Buxi.
Well, I remember the first time that we actually met was at, I think it was like a NORAM in Aspen. And you were already, I was like the young guy and I didn't really know who you were. And you were starting in the back because I think you had really good GS points at the time. And you came from like the very back to way up on the podium or something. I was just like, to see another Marco was cool. But then I was like, damn, who is this guy? And then I started looking into your results and saw that you were like a veteran who's just trying to kind of transitioning into speed. And the rest is history. We raced together quite a bit from there on out. But the way you went to the different disciplines throughout your career, I thought was pretty cool.
I don't know that we overlap very much. I mean, yeah, I was a exclusive downhiller by the time you started. I was winding things down. So, but anytime you see a racer from Liechtenstein on the start sheet, it gets your attention because there's not very many of them.
The one and only from Liechtenstein, pretty much in that era. Marco, Buchs, and I, we had a lot of battles on the World Cup. We shared the podium. Most notably in Kitzbühel. It was my last season. I got third, he was second. And it was always like fun to be around you, man. Like he always had a good smile and kind of joking here and there and just always brought some more energy, to the tour than most other Europeans. And you kind of like, you're almost like another American for us, like Buchs is one of those guys that really fit in well with us as Americans. Like he brought a lot of good energy to the tour, joking around, always like smiling and saying hello, and just a great personality to have. And we became great friends. And I mean, I remember you coming out to Truckee, riding Harleys around the U.S. and stuff like that. And my last year, I really wanted something to kind of take away, obviously his experiences, everything, but being a good friend, I asked him for a race suit, and I got this race suit of Marco's right here, which is really sweet, and I try and put it on once in a while. It's too big for me, but but he's got it all signed right here, so this is pretty cool takeaway that I got from Marco my World Cup day. So thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Buxi, I always love to hate the Austrians, and we had relationships with all the teams. What was your relationship with the U.S. team?
Well, basically, my relationship to the U.S. in general goes way back when my mom, she was an au pair before I was born in Chicago, and when I was a little boy, I think it was about 4 years old, she took me over to Chicago and she put me in a kindergarten, and that was my first impression I got from the US. And ever since, there was a huge connection. And the European ski racers are, let's put it this way, sometimes a little bit narrow-minded, not free-spirited. They're a little bit intense once in a while. And I always dig the atmosphere the US ski team has. They get along with each other so good, and they just let it loose sometimes. They party together as the Europeans never do, because right after the race, everybody's getting in their car, driving back home, and we never get to celebrate. And I dig that so much. That's why I love spending time with the Americans.
I want to get into talking about being on a small team. So Mark Girardelli had a team of one. He trained with us. Stephen Lee trained with us. What was it like being the only Liechtenstein racer? Who'd you train with, and how did you get fast being a loner?
Well, back in the days when I was young, we had quite a team. We were not the most successful ones, but we were a few. And the one coach I had, which taught me the most and probably taught me some manners as well, that was Marie-Therese Nadig, gold Olympic medalist, 72 in Sapporo. She was my coach when I was young. And AJ, you might know her brother, Theo, for sure.
He was my first coach.
Yes, exactly. So she was my coach for, I think, about 6 years. And then we had another coach. We were training within the Liechtenstein team up to the Olympics in Lillehammer, 94. And afterwards, they realized we're not enough racers. So they tried to find a deal with the Swiss team. And for 15 years, I was part of the Swiss national ski team. I trained with them, even though I raced for Liechtenstein all these years. I didn't have any Liechtenstein coaches, but I was a complete part of the Swiss team. And in the beginning, I was a GS racer, and that's the funny thing, I was in a team with Mike van Groeningen, Urs Kählin, Paul Akkola, and Steve Loescher. And I was the number 9 in the world in GS, but within that team, I was number 5. I still had to carry all the guys' bags to the room. And afterwards, after I did downhill, I was in the team with Didier Cuche. So
the veterans made you step up with some rookie detail, huh? To carry bags.
Even though I was top 10 in the world, I still had to do rookie stuff.
We always had like a rule of like if you're last down or the slowest guy in downhill race day, you got to carry the big finish bag, which a lot of guys would put ski boots in and everything, make it really heavy for the slow guy. That was you, huh? Number 9 in the world, the slow guy. Going back to I remember a standout moment. We were in Kranjska Gora, and Van Groeningen won another GS, and you and I went out afterwards to party with a few guys. I'm like, "Where's Van Groeningen?" You're like, "He doesn't party. He never comes on like for winning." And like, I mean, he was used to it, but he was so serious. Like you said, that's where you really separated yourself. You're more free spirited, soaking up all those moments, like our team would. Was something special, for us on the road. But the Swiss definitely did not partake in any of that, and you were kind of like in a way the black sheep with the Swiss guys, huh?
So it was the first year I got successful in skiing. I realized the whole team is not celebrating, and I thought like I have to be focused and everything. I cannot go on to celebrate. I will celebrate at the end of the season. Not going to happen. It's not the same. So I realized very quickly, you do it right away that evening after the race. You go out, have a couple of beers, just have a good time. You don't have to party too hard, but at least you have to celebrate a little bit. And that's what I saw at the US ski team, and I totally enjoyed it.
You're only as good as your last race. It's hard to celebrate at the end of the season when the best races were in January. So,
Marco, can you talk about the transition from a tech skier, giant slalom, to a speed skier?
I wasn't a natural. I have to admit, I did my first downhill races at the World Championships 1991 in Saalbach. And I wanted to do the 92 Olympics downhill as well. I crashed a week prior to that and broke my arm. And then I tried to pick it up. I did the downhill race in the 94 Olympics. But then I basically got so scared in downhill and I quit. And I stuck with GS because I thought, well, this is good for me. I'm a technical skier. This is better for me. I don't want to be scared like that. And so, as you mentioned, I made my medal at the 1999 World Championships in Vail. But the very same season, I thought to myself, I will go to Kitzbühel just to watch the guys race, because I knew I never raced that race. I will never be a downhill. I just go to Kitzbühel to watch them. And I was down there at the finish area watching one racer after another coming down, and my jaw dropped. I thought to myself, what kind of wimp am I? Being, yeah, right, technically advanced, pretty good, and great discipline, giant slalom, but watching these guys, these are heroes, these are gladiators. And also my wife told me that downhillers are sexy. So I thought to myself, well, I have to dig into that. Having 8, 9, maybe 10 giant slalom races a season is not enough. I need a second discipline. And that's why at the end of the season, I did the Swiss National Championships just to get a couple of FIS points. The upcoming next season, that's where I met Marco Sullivan the first time, because I had bad points and I did the Norm races in Aspen. We went to Beaver Creek, had just a Super G, but no downhill. And the second Super G of the season was Kitzbühel. And my coaches told me, you have to at least do one training. And I was scared as hell just driving into Kitzbühel. And I got to the hotel and I opened up the trunk of my car and I wanted to take out the bags of my car. And Didier Gusch came by and he said, you do not unpack your bags in the room, because I don't want to pack your bags when you are in hospital. That's how I was greeted. And I did one training. I had the very last bib, and Darren, you might remember, it dumped snow for 2 days straight afterwards. There was no more training. And then we had the Super G, and I had bib number 32, and I finished 4th. And I got up on the in the evening, the ceremony, and I thought, this is addictive. I want more of that. So I decided I do my first World Cup downhill in Kitzbühel the next day. And true to this day, my very first World Cup downhill was Kitzbühel, 2000, and it was a carpet, and it was easy, and it was slow, and the start was below Mausefalle, and I scored World Cup points.
Amazing.
Pretty good story.
Yeah.
Bux, I remember you always, throughout your whole career, you were really open about the fact that you were kind of scared in downhill, and during inspection, you would talk about being nervous about certain sections. And I didn't know if you were like trying to get it in our heads or what, but it was, I think it was a true emotion from you, but you were able to like get in the start gate and overcome that and become, one of the greatest. Like, how did you do that? How did you overcome that in your head?
Funny enough, the first couple of years, I have to admit, I was scared. I really had problems, but I always thought it's so fascinating. I got faster and faster. Super G, it happened right away. First season I did Super G. At the end of the year, I was top 15. In downhill, it took me some time. And maybe you remember there was a time where the top 30 in training were reversed for the race. And I was coming into Lake Louise, bib number 77 in training. I was 28th. And I had bib number 3 at the race, and I finished 16th. And same happened in Beaver Creek, and suddenly I was top 30. And this was my this was my approach to downhill, step by step. And I still admit the first 2, maybe 3 years I was scared, but suddenly it clicked. I was fighting for the last hundredths of a second. Suddenly it was like something happened. I felt more comfy within a few years. And I have to say, I was not always comfortable at the start. And probably all of you know what I'm talking about. I had days, especially in Kitzbühel and Bormio, where I was scared, or at least I was nervous as hell. But, as we all know, it takes a lot more courage to go out back doors than front.
So Doris, your wife, she said, yeah, downhillers are sexy. And that kind of got your attention a little bit. Was that when you guys were dating, or were you married at that point?
We were dating.
Aha. So that's what really drove you to become a downhiller.
But you have to listen to this. I was in the game of being a downhiller for a couple of years, and I think in the year 2004 or 5, I took her to Kitzbühel and I placed her on the Mausefalle. And I said, honey, here's a perfect spot. Enjoy. And I raced, and it took about 30 to 40 minutes after she came down to the finish area, white-faced. And she took me by the collar here and she grabbed me. You asshole. Why did you do this to me? You are insane. You're crazy. Don't ever do this to me again. So I said, you always wanted a downhill. Now you got one.
She got what she wished for.
Yeah. Yeah, she was scared watching.
Hey, Doug Lewis here, and I want to talk about the American Downhiller Speed Camp. American Downhiller is the leader in teaching young ski racers how to go fast and have fun. 2023 will mark the 6th annual American Downhiller Speed Skills Camp in Mammoth Mountain. Our speed camp is coached exclusively by current and former World Cup racers and coaches who are passionate about helping the next generation of athletes achieve their dreams. We specifically focus on aerodynamics, jumping technique, speed tactics, and the mental training required to safely navigate Super G and downhill race courses. If you are a ski racer who wants to go fast, check out our website, americandownhiller.com, for all specific camp dates.
Yeah, I have a question for you. You know, we talked about your transition to being a downhiller. And, you know, for me, I came in, I had no aspirations for anything but being a downhiller. I think a lot of skiers are. But talk a little bit about Odermatt. I mean, this is a guy that came in as a tech skier, truly, but I mean, right from the get-go, when he starts running speed, he's one of the best in the world. So clearly this is a ski racer with incredible talent. He's young. You know, I think the natural progression that we see is, you know, tech skiers that get a little bit long in the tooth, and for them to preserve their career, they start focusing on downhill and speed. And with the technical background that they have, they end up being pretty good at it. But like, talk a little bit about Odermatt and just his trajectory for starters, but then just his body of skill ability to be able to dominate in almost every discipline.
I have to say this in respect for you, AJ and Doug. Downhill back in the days when you were skiing, it was different.
Oh,
This were the times where a downhill was a downhill. And then Darren, me and Marco, we experienced the change of equipment, and downhill got more technical through the side cut skis. So the real old school downhillers that come in straight into downhill and always be the guys with a lot of courage and just, yeah, true downhillers, these people are rare. Nowadays, you come in from GS because you need the technical ability because of the equipment you have. And it gives you a huge advantage, especially on courses like Beaver Creek or probably Kvitfjell as well. You need to be really good in the technical stuff. It's not courage anymore. It's not who has the biggest, you know, cojones, but who will technically ski good and is also equipped with courage. So a lot of downhillers come in from giant slalom. And if you look at Marco Odermatt, basically it's the same turn he does in GS as in downhill. It's just extended. It's a longer turn, but the same thing applies. The only thing newly you have to learn is the gliding section. And, you know, it's not that difficult. Everybody sooner or later learns how to glide and let his skis run. That's easier to learn than a technical turn. So basically, you will see more and more tech skiers, at least from GS, coming into downhill. And that's one transition which happened the last 1 or 2 decades, that downhill still needs courage, but not as much as the time when you guys were skiing.
I have to say that transition in the discipline with the equipment happened right in the last quarter of my career, and it was more or less what ended my career, because the sport changed so much, right? With the equipment, things got turnier. I mean, the speeds were still up. I mean, we were still setting records from the start to the finish at places like Kitzbühel, but there was 2 more gates, 2 more turns, things like that. And I just was not able to adapt at latter part of my career to how it
Mhm.
changed. But so you're absolutely right. It did change a lot from, I mean, the days I came in racing in the late 80s on 230 centimeter skis, you didn't need to turn them. You just needed to send them.
Send them. The one who is has a lot of courage is fast. Make less mistakes, you'll be fast. Nowadays, a lot of different things playing a role in that.
I think that's a big factor though, because look at Odermatt jumping into his first race in Kitzbühel last year. And I saw him at the start, about 5 guys out after he got the course report from his team. And I was on the little skyway between the Kitzbühel Ski Club, Star House, and the Red Bull Energy Station. And he looked up and I just said, "Let's see it, Marco," and gave him like the horns. And he had this sparkle and this smile from his face. And he was, I mean, like you said, it's great to acknowledge that fear. Everybody's fearful, but if you acknowledge it and you express it, say to Sully here and some other guys, like just trying it off your chest, it helps you deal with it. But I was pretty surprised that Odermatt did not have that like fearful look in his eye. He was fired up and ready to go. And Foyt's wins and he gets second. I like that, like what you did too. Your first World Cup downhill, I didn't even know that was on the stripe. That's crazy, by the way.
I think a great word for that is respect. I think we all respected the danger of Kitzbühel. And
Yes.
if you respect it and you face it, all of a sudden it heightens. It did for me. It heightens all my senses. I saw better. I felt better. I heard better. And people who don't respect it will be in the hospital. Now, we're going to transition from Kitzbühel, dangerous course, to, I think, one of the most fun courses out there, Val Gardena. Buxi, I'll start with you. Can you describe what it's like to run Val Gardena downhill?
It's Disneyland.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to express it. I love Val Gardena. You need gliding abilities. You need a lot of fine sensation in every turn you do. You need to have courage for the first time when you jump over the camels, and you need a lot of technique and precision coming into Chaslat. The timing is essential, and you need to work your bumpers. And timing is just the one essential thing. I don't know. It's the whole package. The area is beautiful. The mountains are beautiful. Food is great. People are nice, and you have a course that is different than anything else. It's the package that makes Val Gardena unique. And the fun thing is, if we have a rookie coming into Val Gardena, and I had to go through the same thing, while you inspect the camel jumps for the first time, there's always somebody who asks you for your mileage card from your airline, because he tells you you get extra mileage here on your card.
Yeah, it's an incredible place to go to for the first time. And I think Disneyland's a great way to express it, because I mean, the camels is like nothing that you've ever imagined. I mean, you can watch it on television, but until you inspect and you see the world just disappear over the first camel, and you have no idea what to expect. And you're like, I got to run this, and I know that I got to land perfect, and then I got to pop. I have no interest in that. But man, it's so much fun, because the first time you do it and you land it, it's just a perfect little glide. And God, yeah, it's amazing. It's such a fun sensation at that speed. And to know that, you get to charge and do that, it's a great adrenaline rush. And then, coming into Chaslat and all that terrain that you have to ski. I mean, this is one of the most challenging technical sections I've ever skied. So yeah, it's an incredible rush to get to the bottom of that course. You just want to go do it again.
Once you come for the first time, you come down the wall and you glide towards the camel jumps, and your mind goes, am I really doing this? God damn it. Pull your together. And you do the first roll and you get ready and you go like, ah! And once you're in the air, you realize you have everything under control, and you see the last roll and you know you're going to clear it. It's all, yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
So much fun.
That is the highlight. That's the one that stands out. But like, it starts from the top. There's so much fun top to bottom on this track. And that right footer, the first turn, you drop down, get a good compression. You're kind of get light. You switch up in the air. Another right footer off that jump. I think Ailey Lewis and I counted how many times we're in the air. It was like 26 times in Val Gardena. Just, just even little poppers, but some big, obviously the big jumps, but it's rowdy. And it's like a little supercross track at big speed. So I loved it as well. And back in the day when I first started, it was more intimidating because of how narrow it was. Remember how like closed in it was at the Mower?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about the camels all the way down my first training run, and I almost slammed into the fence off the Mower because my direction was wrong. And I felt like I was going to blow this, like I didn't have the speed. So I almost stood up and hit the brakes before the camels. And then I'm like, same thing what you said, Books. It's like, what am I made of? Let's go. And just wrapped up again and just had to pop a little harder and made it, just a little doubt was erased after that. But it's a tough one to face as a downhiller your first time. And there's been a lot of like nasty crashes and some big injuries on that one too. So that kind of like elevates that factor of just the scare factor, I guess.
This week, we are proud to welcome the ADL Ski Club as a new supporter to this season's podcast. The ADL has members all over the country and are huge fans of the World Cup and big supporters of the American downhillers. Their dream trips go to Kitzbühel, Wengen, the Dolomites, and Japan for Japao. But this month, they are supporting the American downhillers with an online auction to help raise money for the men's speed team coaches mentorship fund, and they need your help. The aim of the fund is to bring back experienced coaches and athletes to pass along their valuable insight, experience, and support to the new generation of coaches. This year's funds go to get Forrest Carey, Dane Spencer, and our own Marco Sullivan back coaching our best. For all information on supporting this fund, go to adlskiclub.com/fundraiser. That's adlskiclub.com/fundraiser. You can bet on all kinds of great U.S. ski team gear with race suits available from Steven Nyman, Jared Goldberg, and Tommy Ford, as well as official U.S. ski team clothing. All items are 100% tax deductible and will go exclusively to the fund. The ADL and Coach Scotty Venus, thank you for your support.
That's just one of the sections we're not allowed to do a mistake. After the first roll, don't screw it up. You can make lots of mistakes on the whole course. So many places, it doesn't matter if you make a mistake, but coming into the second roll where you lift off, you do one mistake, ouch.
Game over.
Yeah, we're talking about course reports before too, and trusting your coaches and just kind of knowing the feedback that you get, right? And I was standing on the side of the race hill. My first year was I did inspection. I was going to race the Super G, and Pepe Strobel was one of the first racers, and he popped the camel, and he went about another 80 feet past the landing. Huge jump. And they rated it up to the team. I remember Craig Thrasher getting this message like the speeds are really fast, air is big, so you could almost like suck it up today. I mean, just a little stiff leg. And he ended up doing too much and smacked on the cased it, basically the landing. Yeah, and he blew both knees that day. So that was like before I even raced Val Gardena. I think seeing those, one from a massive jump to like the same race, like some guy coming short. And who was it? Was it Svindal or one of the Norwegians that had like a pretty crazy crash up that one year? Did like a 180, landed backwards on his back.
I know that one of them was
that crash?
Silvan Zurbrücken. He had a bad crash. Stefan Stankalla. And also David Poisson.
That was a bad one. In my era, I saw Anton Steiner. I think he blew out both knees as well. Because when I race, I went around him the first couple of years. That was my era. You had to either be Uli Spiess, who did a shot of schnapps in the starting gates and then ran, which was crazy, or a couple of Austrians. Yeah, he would, and you do the shot of schnapps and run this course. It was crazy. Those crashes were legendary, and we all said it. You have to commit in the starting gate that you're going to jump them, and you got to block it out. But I was like Darren the first time I did it. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to jump the camel bumps. every gate I was jump the camel bumps, and it didn't go well, but I cleared them. It wasn't pretty, but boy, is that a mind that you are trying to put it out of your mind, but it will not leave. That's all you're thinking.
You have to admit, after your time, it got a little bit easier because they moved the third roll a little bit closer and they narrowed it down a little bit. So clearing bump or roll number 3 nowadays is easier.
My first time inspecting Giardelli, who was legendary and had maybe 4 globes to his name already, he was inspecting the line that goes around the jumps. And I thought to myself, here I am, a rookie, 18 years old, and I'm inspecting the jumping. So, but I think that, there was another bad crash in our era, Books, that Piantanita, remember the Italian?
Yes.
He had a very bad crash there. And I think after that, they moved him closer. So he was airlifted out, and I think he was revived on the hill.
Yeah, but he was never seen again on the course.
No. That was the end of it.
Who was the first guy that doubled it? Anybody know who the first guy was that?
Uli Spies.
Yeah, I think
So
so.
Uli was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like throwing back the schnapps at the start.
Yes.
Really?
The other, I had some real characters when I raced. The Austrians were up there. Erwin Resch, remember that dude or heard his name? He was smoking cigarettes in the front gate. I'm like, are we at a ski race here or a bar? Like the guy was smoking cigarettes. We had more characters back then. I want to finish this. We've talked about the top. We've talked about the looping, the jumps, the Mower. Marco, talk us about that finish shoot. It seems like you hyperspace and you round that corner. Talk about what it's like to do that last 15 seconds.
The last 15 seconds. When you have cleared the section Chaslat, basically it's a huge relief, or you're angry because you didn't nail it. Basically, when you nailed it, you're totally happy you did. And the only thing you do is you look for the fast line just to take the last bit of speed, because first of all, you get on a flat part with a couple of rolls and you do the left foot turn to the right side. There's another jump and then you turn around and it gets dark because it's a lot of shadow. The terrain is falling down to the left side and you see the finish area down there at the bottom. The only thing you do is you make yourself as small as possible. You go down, you tuck down, make yourself as small as possible, and you do clear the last jump, which has become bigger than a couple of years ago. And then you land, you try to break down in that shadow, cold, dark finish area, and you turn around and I've experienced a couple of times pretty good results there. So I always like slowing down in the finish area. How about you guys?
Yeah, that's a fast section. I mean, you just start to accelerate and you can hear it. I mean, your skis start to whistle, right? You set that left edge and it feels like you're still going the speed of, what you're in Chaslat, which is really turny and slow. But man, it's like somebody turned on the afterburners and you hear the skis start to go, and you accelerate and come whipping around that corner to where you point them a little bit straight and you got a roller and, it's exciting. That's really that course. You start having a lot of fun in the first 6 or 8 seconds and the fun doesn't quit until you cross the finish line.
I'm going to set up Marco Sullivan and we can all talk about this, but this is the most terrain laden course out there. And Marco, did terrain come naturally to you or is it something you struggled with, and how did you learn it? And I'd love to go around the circle here about just talking about terrain.
I think for me, I mean, like everyone on this podcast, I loved Gardena, and the terrain piece was, for me, growing up in Tahoe, a place where there was tons of free skiing, powder skiing, cliff jumping. It was that course just related to my natural skills so nicely, because you could just work all the little jumps and go as fast as possible and not be scared. There wasn't a lot of risk. Like we were saying, there obviously there is risk, like on the camels and in different sections, but you could just pretty much go full throttle the whole way. And I felt like, because of my background of a ton of free skiing as a kid, that I had those skills, and there was never a question mark of like going full throttle at Gardena. It's just a place where you went as fast as you could, and like Buxi said, usually turned around in the finish and had a pretty good result, and always smiling, and the rest of the team also usually did pretty well. So it was just a really good vibe.
AJ, growing up on, such terrain in mid-state New York, where did your love of terrain or your feel come from?
Yeah, well, it certainly wasn't like Marco and Darren growing up in it, but I think just whatever the thing with me was that appealed to downhill was kind of the same thing. I just really loved the I don't know, the roller coaster, the amusement parks aspect of ski racing, and that's what made downhill so interesting and fun to me. The challenge of working the terrain was, I think, was something that was fun to figure out. How to open up before and press on the backside of something. I had a coach when I was a young kid talking about gliding, and he's like, you always have to press on the backside of every ripple and every roll. And you equate that to the larger rolls like the camels or the big terrain you see in Saslong. And I just translated it, the smaller stuff to the bigger stuff, and it was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to stay connected to the snow when you can.
Darren, can you describe what it's like not to hit the Cheslot well?
Yeah, well, it's like, yeah, when you mess up on going on the Cheslot, it all starts entering it, and hopefully you give it just enough where you make a nice double and you land on the backside. But if you come up short, you're going to skip. If you go too long, you're really hustling to get back on the line. And that's kind of the critical start for that whole section. And I'd say guys with like longer legs, where you see like Nyman from the American side and Bryce Bennett, those guys have an advantage to really kind of reach out and suck back up, even if they do get off the line a little bit. So they have an advantage, but like being a smaller guy with like shorter legs, had to be really precise and on top of my game through there. But it was like everybody's saying right here, terrain's the most fun to ski. There's an element of like being challenged with jumps and rollers on the edge, and that just always like attracted me to skiing. And that's why I like downhill more, because you're skiing the mountain, you're not just skiing a course. But it was when you nailed that, it was so fun. And that was like probably my biggest focus was on that course, to try and be, as clean and smooth and hit the rhythm section there as well as possible to the Cheslot. And then, like Book said, when you exit it, it's either like, damn it, I just blew it, or like, come on, baby, let's see what I got to the finish line. And one thing I want to bring up though too is it's crazy. I remember like top 30 guys being within 1.28 seconds. Like, what is it where so many people are so stacked, so many racers are so stacked on a course like that? It's very challenging. Also, the guys come from the back. Like Books, you mentioned Marcus Foser, winning with bid number 66. That's not very uncommon, I think, in the history through Gardena, where a late bib has at least been on the podium.
So we all know the big mountain behind the camel jumps. When you see the big mountain, which is very scenic, and we all know if you start early, you have sunlight on the top flats. Right after start, you got sunlight up there. But as soon as you hit Cheslot, it's all in the dark and it's shadow. Late numbers on top, there was shadow with a little bit of tailwind, and Cheslot was in the sun. That made it easier. So this is why high numbers always had a huge chance to make great results. But now they skipped the starting time. I think they start a half an hour earlier, or even 1 hour earlier. They changed the starting time to avoid that number 60 wins again. But basically, it's always a great chance in Gardena to have good results. And my theory about the narrow margins within first and 30th, or the ties, you have not so many huge technically difficult sections. From top down to Czeslat, everybody can ski that perfectly good. A little bit better here, a little bit worse here. But most of the racers, if they know how to glide and have the right equipment, they're all within 1 second coming to Czeslat. So you have 60 to 70 racers at the start, and you have 60 to 70 racers arriving at Czeslat within 1 second. And then it spreads between the guys who hit it right or the ones who don't. And at least 30 of them, plus maybe 40 of them, hit it pretty good. And the ones, top guys who probably don't nail it as good, still make a difference. So this is why in the end, about 30 racers are within 1.5, maybe maximum 2 seconds. So this is my theory.
I back that up.
I was listening to Sullivan with the terrain as a young kid. I think that applies to me as well. I was really bad when I was a young skier because I skipped ski club training the whole time. I was skiing terrain with my buddies, jumping every little thing there was, and my results in the races were not good, but I was out there having fun. So afterwards, when I came to Gardena, the terrain just came natural to me.
Good point, for sure. I mean, we would always blow off training for a good POW day, and you know, that was just like the squaw mentality out here in Tahoe. So, hey, what's so Stokely being such a small brand, you had a lot of success on Stokely. Odermatt's on Stokely. I mean, it's a really small team. Like, how do you guys compete with the big powerhouses like Atomic?
Stokely has one huge advantage, and they have one huge disadvantage. The advantage is they can react very quickly. And if you know what you want, they build skis within a short amount of time, faster, quicker than maybe a big company who is moving a little bit slower. The big disadvantage is if you only have 1 or 2 racers, you don't have lots of data. You only have the feedback of 1 or 2 different persons. You need to have precise feedback. Plus, you need a feedback that tells you exactly what to change in a new ski. And if you have a person like that with a great sensation under their feet and the knowledge what to change, then it's a win-win situation. But if you have one good racer who doesn't know about the setup or anything, then you're screwed. Then it's a huge disadvantage.
Wend produces a sophisticated line of ski and snowboard waxes for use by skiers, riders, racers, and shops. The current Wend snow wax formulations have come from over 50 years of progressive blend reformulation and on-slope and in-lab testing. This has been in conjunction with the feedback of some of the world's top ski and snowboard athletes. Athletes who know real speed, like Kitzbühel champ Darren Rolfs and 2019 Birds of Prey GS champion Tommy Ford. Wend no longer sells any products containing fluorocarbon compounds and instead utilizes natural, plant-derived and or biodegradable additives that substantially increase the overall eco-friendliness of the Wend Snow Wax product line. Give Wend a follow on Instagram at Wend Waxworks and purchase your Wend products at wendperformance.com. And don't forget to use the code ADH20 for 20% off your purchase.
I'm going to set Marco Buechel up, Buxi. 2005. I want to hear about this run, whether you knew you were fast, do you remember anything about it? You won by 2 hundies over Volkoffer and a couple tenths over Eric Gay. Let me just remind Darren, you were 19th and Marco, a great race at 37th. We won't go there, but Buxi, did you know you were fast? Take us through that run.
It started early in the morning when I rode up the gondola to the start, and one of the tourists in the gondola looked at me and he asked me my name, and I said, Marco Buechel from Liechtenstein. And he said, well, you are going to win. And I said, why is that? And he said, well, last year I rode up the same gondola with Max Raufer and he won. So basically, if I ride it up with him, so I will win. I thought that's funny. As the guys who raced that race remember, probably it was a pretty windy day and they lowered the start to the Super G start. And we skipped the camel jumps on that day. So I went out to start and I had a great top section. We skipped the camel jumps. We rode around it because it was so windy. They were scared that you might flip in the air. and I had a really good Cheslot section. And if you know downhill is shorter, you are not allowed to make mistakes. You have to give it 100%, go full throttle, and make no mistakes whatsoever. Otherwise, you are thrown out the back. And I came down, and as I cleared Cheslot, I knew this is freaking good. I knew. And I came around that corner into the last section down to the finish area. And on top, I saw the one of the advertisements. I think it was Audi or something, and it was blowing from the wind in the right direction. So I knew I had wind from behind, and I came down and I thought to myself, well, I did my job and I think this was freaking good. And I had the wind on my side, but I had no idea because, you know, sometimes you come down thinking you're the winner and you lose 3 seconds. Happened before as well. So I turned around and I saw that green bib, the green rank #1, and I just freaked out. And afterwards, standing down there waiting one racer after another, that was harsh. And Buechel, he came really close, 200ths of a second. But in the end, I think they stopped the race after 40 races, and then they just announced me as a winner. And I thought, like, it's a good day.
Bux, how was the party? You talked about you want to like celebrate those wins. What happened there after the Gardena win? 06, or that was December 05, but yeah.
Yeah, the fun thing was I didn't do the GS the next day. I drove back home, and my wife organized a music band and friends, and I got home and musicians out on the street. It was winter time, and they were music making outside the house, and a lot of booze. So headache next day. Headache.
One thing we haven't talked about, I think that at Gardena they have the best like buffet at the top lodge. And I remember watching guys, you know, they had donuts and cheese and all sorts of good things. And I remember watching like Manny eat like 3 donuts before his run one year. Do you remember on that day in 2005? Did you go for the donuts, or were you too nervous to eat?
I was probably too nervous to eat anything.
I think it's interesting that every race is different, what you remember. And Bormio, I remember 2 things. Most of it, I was just in the zone, but I remember 2 things: wind at my chest. And I said, oh my God, I'm getting blasted. I got to get low. And at the final jump, it was all ice, but there was a cap must have gone through, and I landed in front of the tracks, and you could only see the tracks because it was glare ice except for the cat. So even though I was mistaken, I'm like, oh my God, I landed 30 feet before everyone else. I must be going super slow. Those 2 things were both wrong because I ended up winning the medal, but it's amazing that I don't remember the skiing, but I remember the wind and the fact that, I'm going really slow. Marco or AJ or Darren, other things, pick a race. Do you have something where you remembered that was just off the wall?
You know, I only won one time in Chamonix, and I had one big mistake at the top, which I always kind of remember. That after that, I just knew I had to have no mistakes. And I think that kind of propelled me to skiing really well for the rest of it. And I, quite honestly, don't remember much of the run other than coming through the finish and just being like, I think that was good. And then waiting in the leader's box and just hoping.
Yeah, I don't remember a whole lot about any of my runs, to be honest. I mean, I remember more than anything what I felt at the finish line as I crossed. Did I have a good run or not? And you know, and then of course your reaction to looking up at the timing board to see. But my approach to ski racing always was just to switch off up here, and so that, you know, for me, I don't remember a whole lot about too many of the runs I ever took.
In Bormio, I had a really fast training run, and that was the time when if you won the training run, you start 30th, and you wouldn't ever try and like, you'd sandbag a little bit if you're feeling good and try and kill some speed. I actually stood up at the bottom and I still won. And so I was starting 30th, and the next day, specifically the Austrian coaches on the hill said, yeah, you blew it. You blew your chance, you know, to compete and win today because you're starting 30th. you're in the wrong place. It starts to be dark and can be even more nasty. I'm like, doesn't matter where I start today, guys. This is mine still. And I was able to come out and win that race. And I think it's that really sticks in my head as something. But like during these like races, there's one time I actually remember hearing on the loudspeaker going off Saslong jump, Saslong sprung, landing, and you go to that the intermediate timer, and there's a speaker right there, and I could hear the announcer going crazy. And I figured like, okay, like I must be fast, and I gotta keep putting it down, from here to the finish. And it wasn't the year I won, but it was still, I was second that year behind Eberharder. But it was just pretty amazing to have those kind of moments that just pop out at you.
All right, so we got to get down to the picks. I want to do a shout out to AJ. AJ, I think everybody was close last week with Kilday and Odermatt, but you won with your pick of Kilday, Foyt, Odermatt. So you had 2 with Kilday winning. So congratulations to AJ. I think you've won every one. So you're winning by 1 million. Just to set this up, think about your top 3, or at least give me who you think will go well at Val Gardena. Kilda and Odermatt, they've had 4 speed races, 2 downhills, 2 Super Gs. And if you add up all the times, it comes out to about 7 minutes, 7+ minutes of racing. And they have been apart by only 0.5, like a half second over 7 minutes, which is crazy. So, and another thing to think about is like, where are the Austrians in downhill, which is fine by me. So I'm not going to go first because I took everybody's picks. Who wants to go first and pick our top 3, or at least who's going to be in the top 5?
I still put Kilday on top because Norwegians and Val Gardena. That's love at first sight, obviously. Then I would love to pick an American, but technically they're not skiing that well right now. So on second place, I put Meyer.
Yep.
And in third place, I put Fights.
Nice.
Yes.
No Odermatt, which is interesting.
No Odermatt, not on that course. But it can be proven wrong, but I don't pick it.
Marco?
I've started off the season picking some underdogs, and then I think I'm going to stay on that trend by going with some guys who've been in the tank at the start of the season here. Dominic Paris has not had a great start, and Bryce Bennett has had a pretty atrocious start. He won here last year, so I think he's going to be fighting to get back on the horse. So I'm going to go with Dominic for the win, Bryce second, and I think Kilday third because he's pretty quick.
Next.
Aaron, do it. I'm waiting. I'm going last.
Oh, man. Well, yeah, the guys that really ski the terrain well and can carry some freight down this hill. I don't want to copy Marco, but Dominic, talking to him in Beaver Creek, he was really frustrated last couple of races, and he was looking forward to Val Gardena. I think Dominic, I'm going to go with him. And I like, Kriegmeyer, I like that guy on this course. He's got a good touch. He's fast. So I'm going to go with Kriegmeyer second. And then I'm gonna bring back Bryce. I mean, I got to bring American to the table, and he's got good feelings there. And he switched from having a horrible start last year to winning Val Gardena, and I'm just counting on him to do the same thing.
Nice. I'm gonna go Kilda Odermatt for the 3rd race in a row or 5th race in a row, whatever. Kilda because he's just dominant on this course. I think Buxi, I think Odermatt is going to figure something out. He's just so long in the leg. I mean, he has such an advantage. And then I'm going to go RCS because, I'd like to go with Bennett, but I just can't see him making that big a change. I'd like to, but RCS with his length in the leg, and he's tall and he's good, and he's kind of under the radar right now. Hopefully his rep will figure it out. So I'm putting RCS 3rd. All right, AJ.
All right. You guys probably don't remember this, but Val Gardena used to always be really good to the Canadians, and Crawford is teed up right now. So I'm going Crawford. I'm going RCS because I think he's had enough of the mediocre results, and he's got a little confidence coming out of Beaver Creek. And my last one's Creekmeyer. I have to agree with a couple of you guys on him. I think he's teed up as well, but look out for the Canadians.
I like that pick.
Good choice. Good choice.
Yep.
AJ is on fire. Thanks for watching and listening to our American Downhiller podcast. For AJ, Darren, Marco, and Marco Buechel, thanks for listening. Marco, all the way from Liechtenstein, thanks for sharing some knowledge and some stories with us. Coming up soon, everybody's favorite Sufferfest DH, Bormio. Ski fast, take chances. Doug Lewis here. If you are a U12, U14, or U16, Elite Team fitness camps are for you. This is not your average fitness camp, as we teach the vital skills of sports psychology and sports nutrition, along with tough, challenging workouts. You will leave camp with more power, strength, and agility, with a deeper understanding about nutrition, and with the mental skills of confidence, focus, and pushing limits, which will take you to the next level. Over our 30 years, we have coached Olympic champions, World Cup stars, NCAA champions, including U.S. ski teamers Michaela Schifrin, Lauren Masuga, Alice Merriweather, Jimmy Krupka, Grace Henderson, and Sammy Worthington. And finally, although we push our limits to the edge, we have a ton of fun. We are holding 2 week-long sessions this July at the Killington Mountain School. Find all the info at eliteteam.com.